Well, we can now speak to Simon Marks, a freelance journalist who was an eyewitness to the Metro blast in Brussels. Mr. Marks, thank you so much for joining us. You must be absolutely traumatized, so we really appreciate you joining us today. Now, you witnessed the actual blast. Tell us what you saw, please.
Well, yeah, I was very nearby when the bomb explosion went off at the Maalbeek Metro station, which is located just a few hundred meters away from the European institutions here in Brussels. I was arriving near the European Council building, where heads of states often hold meetings. You could see smoke coming out of the entrance of the metro station. There was many people who were injured pouring out onto the street. And soon afterwards, there was many paramedics, police, military, soldiers arriving on the scene, obviously to treat the wounded. And soon after, the streets in the surrounding area were cordoned off, and the press was sort of pushed back beyond a safety perimeter.
I can only imagine what the situation must feel like at the moment there in Brussels, where you are. Can you tell us a bit more about the atmosphere at the moment? What's that like in the city?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the country is obviously in shock. It's quite an obvious statement. But the government have announced that the country is on the highest terror alert possible. That's alert level 4. And of course, this is happening just a few days after French and Belgian police arrested Salah Abdeslam, who is a key suspect in the Paris terrorist attacks that took place last year. There was 130 killed back then. So he is a Belgian national. The authorities have been hunting him for four months now. And so this has sort of come in the wake of that. And I might add, just while they were looking for him at the beginning, in the aftermath of the Paris attacks, Brussels was again on a level 4 terror alert. So this is something that this city is sort of growing somewhat used to in many ways.
We're having some technical difficulties there. Oh, he's back. Mr. Marks?
Hi. You lost me there. I just wanted to say, in this case, obviously lives have been lost, making the situation all the more real.
Mr. Marks, you look very healthy and well right now, but you were very close to being injured and perhaps critically yourself. How are you? Do you think you've come to terms with that at all?
Well, I might add, I wasn't in the actual metro. I was just outside of the metro station. So, luckily, obviously, I wasn't in the metro. I take the bus to work usually, so I do take public transport. But, I'm also a journalist, so I actually tried to get even closer to the scene to see what was happening when I was aware of the attack being so close.
And Mr. Marks, do you yourself, are you perhaps a frequent traveller to the EU, the European Union in general? Of course, now the Schengen visa-free travel zone under a lot of strain because of these sorts of terror incidents in Paris last year, now in Brussels. Security levels at the highest ever at the moment there where you are. Do you feel perhaps this could be one of the final nails in the coffin of the visa-free travel zone? It's under so much strain at the moment. Or do you feel a compromise could be found between security for EU citizens and obviously that freedom of movement?
Yeah, well, the Schengen area has come under great strain for two reasons. One is the migration crisis. The other is the sort of terror threat. There are already a number of national borders which are carrying out checks. I think there's 7 countries now, from memory, who have implemented border controls. Obviously, the border between Macedonia and Greece is sort of locked down due to the migration crisis. There's political groups on the right, particularly, who are saying that open borders, free movement is a free ticket to potential terrorists wanting to carry out attacks in Europe. So there are many thought processes going on. The European Commission is thinking closely about how to perhaps reform certain parts of the Schengen area, but it is one of the core values of the EU, and to sort of give up on it is not something that's going to happen tomorrow, I'd say. However, the public, it'd be very interesting to see what happens, particularly from sort of more right-wing groups who will use this as an excuse, I guess, to maybe sort of talk up against Europe and more integration. But certainly this will add fuel to the fire for those calling for an end to the Schengen area and free movement.
OK, we're now receiving reports from the emergency services in Brussels that between 10 and 15 people have been killed from that explosion at Maalbeek Metro station. 10 to 15 people killed, 24 severely burnt and 11 seriously injured in that explosion at the Metro station. Mr. Simon Marks, thank you so much for joining us. And that's Simon Marks there, freelance journalist who was an eyewitness of the explosion in that Metro station.